On today's show, let's preview the Cavs guard group that is, of course, headlined by Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That includes YouTube. Please subscribe if you've not already.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Alster Radio. Check them out on Apple Music, Spotify. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline. That's where the game starts. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and NBA large for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation Through the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell at Down Euclid at Fear the Sword as well. We're going to preview the guards today, not the guardos. Evan, are you ready?
Yeah, it's good to talk about some guards that did not get punched in the face by their power forward on the team. So, it's going to be a fun time. If you know.
Just check out Locked On Warriors if you want to talk about that. We are not going to talk about Draymond Green today. Okay, we're going to go segment 1, Darius Garland. Segment 2, Donovan Mitchell. And then segment 3, we're going to talk about some other notes on those two guys and also the other guys in the guard room. I think particularly Ricky Rubio and what the Cavs will get and what they're kind of missing, I think, until Rubio is back. But to start with Darius Garland, Evan, I think the big question with him is what does year 4 of Garland look like? So when I ask you that question, what are you kind of expecting for Garland as he heads into year 4, his first year after being an All-Star?
So it's a tough question. Obviously, it's really hard to follow up the act that was your third season if you're Darius Garland. Like, everything just went right for Darius, and he hit a percentile on just a stratosphere that a lot of us didn't see coming because, again, Chris, myself, other people who cover this team, people who are in the team, people who are fans of this team, all expected a leap from Darius Garland in year 3. Just not quite the leap we saw. But I think we'll see more improvement and growth. I think we'll see his assist numbers go up, but with playing alongside Donovan Mitchell, we saw it a little bit when he was playing with Mitchell against Philly in the first half, where he was looking for Mitchell, and Mitchell was taking advantage of the gravity Garland kind of possesses and the defensive pressure that Philadelphia was throwing at him, and he was going to have some assist totals go up. I think you're going to see Garland's shooting percentages just in general get better, too. Again, JB Bickerstaff touched on this a little bit on Thursday during practice, that you could actually see the gravity that between Garland, Mitchell, and Kevin Love out there on the floor, and they're going to have that's so much spacing that it's just going to make it a lot easier for guys like Darius to either attack on the interior or get easier shot opportunities because those other two are commanding defensive pressure, and there's Evan Mobley and Jared Allen as well who can cause defenses to collapse. So Garland is kind of primed just to have his efficiency numbers shoot through the roof, and I see another all-star appearance on the horizon for him, and maybe we're having a conversation by the end of the year that he's one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference and possibly a top 5 guard in the NBA as well.
Last year was unquestionably such a massive leap, and he's had an improvement every single year. Like year 1, kind of just didn't really make you say, wow, that this guy looks like a future All-Star, I think. Second year was a really interesting player with some question marks, and then last year's, holy crap, this guy is an All-Star now. In terms of just you look at the advanced take on this, not just what we're seeing. Year 1, according to Dunks and Threes, he's got a expected win creation of negative 1.9. That's in the bottom. That's in the first percentile. Year 2, expected wins created of 3.4. That's 75th percentile, so pretty solid. Last year, expected wins of 12, in the 96th percentile. Estimated plus minus of 3.9 in the 95th percentile, one of just a really elite season on really high usage, carried such a big burden for the Cavs, was just incredibly, incredibly good. And I think when I think about this year, it's okay, is there maybe some of these numbers change, they go up, they go down, whatever. I am more interested to see if is there another leap? Is there another thing where he gets drastically better at it? Or is last year this is sort of what Garland's template is going to be going for how he plays and how good he can be, And does he just start sustaining that level? I think I would lean towards like last year. I don't know if there's another mega leap coming. I would be kind of surprised if that's the case.
Yeah.
There are little areas where I'm kind of curious to see if he does improve and kind of make himself more efficient. I think having Mitchell as another like easy assist opportunity in year 2 of Mobley as another guy to feed assist you is going to ramp up those assist numbers. I think that's entirely possible. I think that's a good point on your part. But like this guy has made the leap, and he is an all-star level point guard. He's really, really good. I don't think there's any denying that now. It's a question of like how good does he get now, and what does year 4 tell us about that?
I mean, yeah, it's really hard just to predict where he heads next because there was a lot of uncertainty around him. Not a lot, but there was uncertainty around him heading into year 3, and then he just had like that astronomical leap of his where it's hard to exactly pinpoint where he heads next, but I think that's kind of the exciting thing is the unknown with Darius Garland, where he already surprised us once, and he's already so young and is the franchise guy for the Cavs, clearly just based on how much he's being paid by them, that wherever Garland goes, he's going to take the Cavs with him, and I don't see him like having like a Steph Curry type like resurgence where like he just becomes bombs away from 3 because he could be wired that way at times, and sometimes Garland is a little too unselfish to a fault where he likes to get everybody else involved instead of just kind of being like, hey, screw it, I'm going to pull up and rip a couple 3-pointers off and just break the backs and rip out the souls of an opposing defense and fan base. So maybe that's where we see a little bit more too, is with Darius becoming a little bit more selfish, but I think having Donovan Mitchell might make that a little trickier too because Mitchell is going to need his touches and shots as well. So I think you and I are just in agreement where we're going to see better efficiency, better assist numbers, maybe more defensive effort as well, because like he was a competent enough positional defender last year, but clearly just being so overtaxed on offense like wasn't his strong suit. So maybe having Donovan Mitchell and then Evan Mobley in year 2 and then Jared Allen as well, just kind of sharing the load to an extent will make things a little bit easier for him. And we talked about it a little bit in the Philly recap, like with Donovan Mitchell showing just a little bit more effort and just tapping into his God-given abilities. Garland doesn't have a super long wingspan, but again, he looks competent enough as a positional defender, and maybe the Cavs are able to patch something together that isn't what projects to be one of the worst defensive backcourts in the league this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think the other part about this is I almost think the opposite of you, sort of in terms of them putting like it's. I almost think like because there is someone else on the floor that is going to demand so much more attention, Garland being able to see an opening to like put his foot down and take a really big pull-up 3 or make a big shot or attack the lane in a big spot. There might just be like a little more room for him to do that now because Mitchell's going to take some spot. Like I think we saw that.
We agree with that.
Well, okay, regardless. The other thing that was like you just saw is like Mitchell as the opposite. The pass that Garland made for Mitchell's first 3 was a pass that was not really available to him a lot last year. That opposite side of the court, just whip a chest pass across the court to the opposite guy, a corner on the opposite wing, the opposite corner. The only guys he could really do that pass with last year were Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen. Doing it to Donovan Mitchell is just a whole other thing you can do, and that can create some a lot of opportunities for them to, if the teams react to that, does Mitchell drive and then kick? Like there's just a lot more that's I think going to come from those two feeding off each other. Though if you're looking for one area for Garland to perhaps improve and become a tad bit more efficient, it's shooting at the rim. So he's about average for point guards in terms of how many shots he takes to the rim, 25% according to Clean to the Glass. If you go to his accuracy, he's at 57% each of the last 2 years. That's also about average. I don't expect him to get to a spot where he's like an elite guy. The guys that play a ton of minutes that are point guards that are elite at that are guys like John Morant, who's like a hyper athletic monster who could dunk, DeJounte Murray, who's a little bit bigger, right? Like Garland doesn't totally fit the profile of a guy who can do that kind of stuff. But if he can just a little bit of an uptick in that, a little bit of uptick in that, he's going to be fine. He doesn't get fouled a lot either, but has a pretty good in-one percentage. So like there's a little bit more like, can he just get to the line more and take advantage of the fact that he's a 90% free throw shooter? There's just those little things where like he does that, his efficiency gets turned up a little bit more, and his scoring becomes even better. But he's really freaking good as he is.
Oh yeah, like the Cavs have the potential to have one of the best backcourts in the NBA, and Mitchell's going to plateau sooner than Garland, and I think, again, there's like the uncertainty around what Darius could do next kind of makes it exciting to spitball and come up with hypotheticals. But I agree with you. Like, him getting to the line or just more often by having just more opportunities at the rim would be helpful. And you noted it a little bit there where with Mitchell commanding defensive attention and Mobley and Allen commanding defensive attention. But let's say it's like Mobley, Love, Mitchell, and then like you play like a 5-out lineup. Darius could have such easy looks at the lane and the basket that it's just going to be really simple for the Cavs to kind of just get that efficiency up to an even higher level with him.
All right. After the break, we're going to come back. Let's preview Donovan Mitchell. We've done a preview on him already, but he deserves, I think, another kind of segment here because he is so much of the focus of the season. But first, Evan is going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline.
Sure thing, man. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs with sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, podcasts, and including everything else in the upcoming weekend slate of games. BetOnline is also your continued source for the sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, scores, and more. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf, is BetOnline. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. For instance, Evan Mobley is plus 1,600 to win Defensive Player of the Year, and the Cavs over-under meanwhile set for 46.5 after they acquired Donovan Mitchell. Check them out today at betonline.net, where the game starts.
All right, we are back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Let's talk about Donovan Mitchell. So I think it is sort of, if you want to take one thing away from that first preseason game, and it's about Mitchell, I kind of think his transition on offense is going to be pretty seamless. I don't think there's like concern about how he's going to fit, how he's going to be used, and that not all coming together. He's too talented. He's too good for that, I think, not to work. Steve Jones on Twitter, I'll link this in the show notes, had a very, very good thread from someone who understands the game at a very, very high level and can break down the sets and things at a level that's just above what I can do. Breaking down what the Cavs did to kind of mesh Garland and Mitchell. And the fact that they had that stuff ready to go in preseason, that stuff ready to go right away, and kind of having I think, a very good instinct on how to pair them is a good sign about just getting Mitchell going, getting him going, and kind of maximizing what they can do for each other. Evan, the question I think when I look at this is just where does his usage end up? Last year he's at 34.5% usage. That means on 34.5% of plays, he's involved in finishing the play on offense. That is in the 100th percentile of combo guards. So, like, does that dip? How much does it dip? Does it dip significantly? I would guess no. He's never in his career been not in the top 10% of guards in usage rate. And, like, does his shot profile change his role? That, to me, offensively is really the only question I have, is what does him with a guy at Garland's level, an ascending star player, look like and change what Mitchell does and kind of how he functions?
I don't think it's going to be a dramatic dip in usage rate, but it's certainly going to go down because we talked about this more so in the Mitchell preview, but Donovan Mitchell's never had a backcourt made like this at all in his pro career. Like, he's played with Ricky Rubio, he's played with Paulo Veneto, he's played with Mike Conley, but like, those are all guys that are kind of on the back end of their career. They're, at least in Conley's case, a former All-Star and, like, you know, one of the best players in Grizzlies franchise history, just like at the back end of his career there too. Where, like you said, Garland is an ascending star who is going to need his touches, who is going to need the ball in his hand to succeed. I think we saw a little bit of the action the other night against Philly where Garland was playing off ball and Mitchell was initiating offensive sets, and like he would kick it to Garland and get an easy assist off that. Or there's situations where the Cavs can utilize Mitchell as a point guard, and you saw it a little bit against Philly as well, where he was running a lineup with Kevin Love, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and I believe Jared Allen. So it's a mix of bench and starters, but you have that defensive anchor in Jared Allen, but you also have a good pick and roll partner in Jared Allen, a good pick and pop partner in Kevin Love, or a roll partner in Kevin Love, and also Karis LeVert, who can get you some easier buckets, and then Isaac Okoro, who can cover for defensive stuff. And also, we saw a really nice cut play when the defense collapsed on Mitchell, and Mitchell had the vision and the wherewithal to know Isaac Okoro was streaking towards the basket, kicked it to him, and it was the best play, arguably, of that game. And so I think the usage rate will go down naturally just because he's playing with Darius Garland, and Garland is the guy for this team and the guard for this team. But we're still going to see some comparable numbers. Like, maybe if you like extrapolate the numbers a bit when you stagger these two from one another, like you could see comparable numbers to what you saw with Utah last season.
So let's flip to the other side of the ball. the other part of this is what is Mitchell going to look like on defense? What is his function? I think that's where we see that grow and adapt and him get comfortable over time. I'm again, like we saw like little glimpses of what they might have him do in terms of off-ball stuff and being and playing and help and what his responsibilities will be in that first game. But again, we will see like no Evan Mobley in the starting lineup for that game sort of like changes. I would assume that changes sort of a little the responsibilities a little bit because you can do very different things when you have Evan Mobley versus Kevin Love as your power forward. Kevin Love is obviously still a very effective player, but Evan Mobley is a defensive alien, and Evan Mobley unlocks a bunch of things about your defensive scheme. So I am curious to just see what he ends up looking like defensively. You know, does the effort thing just kind of solve a lot of the issues he had in Utah? Does his wingspan kind of result in him? Does some of the steal stuff we've talked about in the past, where he can be a guy that can get steals and create fast break opportunities, does that manifest? And look, if and when the Cavs are in the playoffs, how do him and Garland play together defensively? I mean, you look at a team like Philly, they have Maxey and Harden. How does that look defensively? How do Mitchell and Garland hold up defensively? I think it's a fair question to ask if they play Boston or they play Milwaukee in the playoffs, or they play Brooklyn. Like, I am curious to just see how they will handle being a smaller backcourt, even with the support of Allen and Mobley. I think it's still a fair question. I wonder what that does look like when it comes down to pay the tax.
I agree. I think half-court sets and how the Cavs function in the half-court is really going to be a fascinating thing to watch this season, especially with a smaller backcourt, because the game slows down quite a bit. The playoffs, like you saw it a little bit against Philly in the preseason, where especially with Karis LeVert kind of bringing the ball up, like LeVert or somebody would grab the rebound and they kick it up ahead to a Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, who's kind of leading the pack with maybe a guy streaking, whether it was Jared Allen or somebody else on the interior as well, where the Cavs were thriving on the fast break and making the most of these two really special three-point shooting guards they had between Mitchell and Garland. But it's going to be something to watch. I think if you watch the Cavs try to find maybe that happy balance and happy medium on the interior as well, where you see them play guys like Philly, and you're going to see when they play Milwaukee as well. Like Jared Allen and possibly Evan Mobley are going to be a little frustrated on the interior. And like the Cavs took advantage of that because Philly was giving them a lot of space to shoot three-pointers. But also it's the preseason, so we can't take too much stock in what Philadelphia was doing defensively either. But if the Cavs can kind of find that happy medium, so when they run half-court sets in the playoffs and they kind of just run set plays between like their bigs, and maybe they try to build a presence in the interior and then let it trickle outside onto the perimeter, like there's ways to go about it. But like defensively, I'm just focused on offense there. But defensively, yes, there are legitimate concerns, I think. But at the same time, it's going to be just interesting because we saw a lot of opposing defenses just throw their best or their top two perimeter defenders at Darius Garland in key situations and frustrated him. It kind of just bogged down the offense for the Cavs. And now that they kind of have Donovan Mitchell to act as a safety valve and as another guy who can initiate the offense, kind of like how like Atlanta's operating things with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray as well. There's a way they could unlock things, but it's just it's a cop-out, but I want to see what it looks like maybe 10, 15, 20 games in, especially when they maybe start playing the Bostons, the Milwaukees, even the Miamis of the world, because the Heat may be kind of under-talented right now, but they certainly can scrap at the Cavs and give them fits.
I think that I'm curious defensively to see if the thing where Mitchell guards the bigger, if it's depending on who you're playing, like if he guards always will just guard the bigger guard.
I think he will, just because he just has the natural ability to do it, and
he's at least bigger. He's at least
bigger.
like
he's sturdy. Like people like to say like him and Colin Sexton are the same player. They're not in terms of shot profile, but like physically, Donovan Mitchell is just like built. Like he's just structurally more sound. He's more. I don't know how else to describe it. Like he's bigger.
He's listed at. He's got the 6'10" wingspan. He's 6'1", but he's listed at 215. So like there's just like a thicker frame for him versus Garland, who I'm gonna pull up and see what he's listed weight as is on Basketball Reference. Sometimes people tell us we get heights wrong and things, and sometimes the heights are different depending on where you look. So Garland is also 6'1". He's listed at 192. Yeah. So that's what 8. That's 23. That's 23. Yeah, it's a 23 pound difference. Like that. That's not nothing if you're saying, okay, and defend Maxey, who's quick and can get off shots quick, versus Harden, who's going to do James Harden. I don't think that Mitchell's going to become this like lockdown James Harden guy in the playoffs, but like, can he use his wingspan and battle and at least bump through some of these things. That I think that's all you're really asking of him.
I mean, if the Cavs really want a puncher's chance against James Harden and Philly, just don't put Dean Wade on him.
Look, Dean Wade.
No one asked him about it during media, but I certainly.
I don't know what you
how's
asked
it going?
them. Yeah, are your
How's it
ankles
going?
okay, Dean?
As your ego, what hurts more, your ankles or your ego? But
honestly, the Dean Wade interview, I really just maybe like my bucket list Cavs interview right now is like let me just talk to Dean Wade about his thoughts on the Weekend's trilogy. Just amazing that it's just Dean. Let's chop it up. Let's talk about like Glass Table Girls and have a good time. If you know why I'm saying that, it's because he has said The Weeknd is like his favorite artist, like in these like videos at the arena, and like I just was like, oh, that's interesting.
I have a fun Dean Wade fact before we go into break. He can really throw the football, and the Cavs are playing just like pickup at the end of practice, and I watched Karis LeVert run into a padded wall at full speed trying to defend Lamar Stevens on a play. And I'm just like, this is so dangerous watching these multimillionaires just like throw their bodies against one another.
Okay, Karis. Maybe JB probably had his heart.
But anyways, yeah, Dean Wade can sling that thing. I'm just like, damn, he can throw it.
All right. After the break, let's just talk about a couple small Mitchell Garland things, and we'll kind of finish up by doing a quick rapid fire thing on Ricky Rubio. All right, last segment on Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell. So, Evan, there's no reason not to stagger Mitchell and Garland to me. None.
No need to apologize for 48 minutes of elite point guard play. Next question.
I truly just want like Kobe to lean into just like be saying that he will never do it, but like it would be so funny if he's at a press conference at some point and it's like, he had 48 minutes of elite guard play and like but like I just want him to say it because he said the thing about center play, and then I want to like do the DiCaprio meme. I just like really sometimes want like some little nods and winks to us sickos who are like covering this team and like understanding the weird shit they say sometimes.
That's the fun part of it all. It's just you stagger him, and I think you play let Donovan Mitchell cook. Like the Jazz learned over time that like, hey, Donovan Mitchell just having the ball in his hands and kind of being a pseudo combo point guard does work, and the Cavs could kind of find similar results and maybe draw some inspiration from what the Jazz did, and also just maybe figure out what the Jazz did wrong as well and maximize the potential of this trade.
So I would not be surprised if one of them makes All-NBA this year. Mitchell, I don't think has made an All-NBA team yet.
I don't think he has either.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he hasn't, but it wouldn't shock me if like one of them is like second or third team guard. I don't think both of them are getting it. Like, there's a lot of really good guards. It would not surprise me if one of them gets it. I think both of them are fully good enough to be an All-NBA level guy at this point. Yeah, Mitchell has been he was all rookie first team, 3-time All-Star, has not been an All-NBA guy as of yet.
Okay, so I'm going to list the 6 guards who were made All-NBA last year, and I'm going to ask you who one of them bumps out. So first team is Devin Booker and Luka Doncic.
Those guys are not getting bumped off.
No. Second team is Steph Curry and John Morant. Don't think those two are either. Third team is Chris Paul and Trae Young. They could, depending on one, how the Sun seasons go, and two, like maybe the Cavs hit another gear and they just like blitz past Trae, and maybe Trae struggles with having to share the ball with DeJounte Murray a little bit, but it's going to be tough, but it certainly is plausible, like to make for one of them to make third team All-NBA.
Yeah, the Paul spot would be the one. And look, injuries can happen. I also would say, like, I think maybe at the end of the year, when we kind of like go through some award stuff, do some All-NBA stuff, and think about how the Cavs factor in these discussions. Even if they don't get it, I think we can kind of at least judge, okay, this is All-NBA quality, even if they don't necessarily get it. So that'll be a fun thing to do. Okay, let's end on this. Evan, I feel like the guard depth is really built on Rubio coming back. I just think, well, How Neto is going to be fine and solid and do what he does. Rubio is just going to complete the looks that I think they sort of need to be the best version of themselves as a team, just in a way Neto cannot. So I think like Neto is going to, when he plays, it's going to be competent backup point guard play. He's going to keep everything moving on time. He's going to look good. He's going to make smart passes, be a pretty just efficient, competent player. I don't think this guard rotation and like overall the depth of the team is really going to be the best version that it can be for the Cavs to be the best version of themselves. If Rubio comes back and can be like something like he was last year, obviously at a lesser degree, maybe coming off that second ACL injury, I think he is very sneakily important to what this team's ceiling is going to be if Rubio can come back and look. The more and more I thought about it, I kind of just am like, okay, I think they kind of need Rubio to do some stuff.
So your true, like, quote-unquote guard rotation, obviously when this team is healthy, is Garland, Mitchell, then Rubio. I agree with your point on Neto. I wrote about this in Fear the Sword, where bringing in Donovan Mitchell kind of mitigates the need for Hollow Neto at times too, because if you just want Mitchell to really cook, just put the ball in his hands at the bench unit, and maybe that's where like Neto and Mitchell just don't make as much sense together. But also having a point guard out there to set the table, like you said, helps a lot too. And then Ricky Rubio just playing bigger than he actually is going to really make things interesting for the Cavs if, just depending on the player they have post ACL tear. But maybe you throw Isaac Okoro into this mix too, because JB Bickerstaff has called him a shooting guard a few times during camp, and like they play him at the 2-guard spot a lot now, where Okoro could kind of maybe be that guy where you would rather pair him with Mitchell in certain lineups just because you have a bit more of that defensive stopgap, so you can maybe let Don expend more energy on offense than defense in those scenarios where when he's playing with Darius, you have Donovan Mitchell kind of playing both ends of the floor because he has to carry way less of a load on offense. It's an interesting thought exercise, and I don't think we'll have a clear picture of where things kind of stand until we know what Rubio looks like post-injury and everything, but it also just makes me go back to the idea of maybe the Cavs need to start thinking about investing in a young guard just to kind of let them develop slowly, whether the charge at the back end of the rotation, but they don't have any picks until 2024, so they can't right now.
Yeah, the way I think they can obviously will bolster this group in the wing group, but it will be like maybe the MLE next summer, right? Like that's kind of where you're looking to see like what kind of veteran that hits the market can you hit at the right age and kind of figure stuff out in that sense. Okoro is kind of an interesting part of this because like I'm curious to see the preseason tells us nothing because like the starters played a half and like you don't really get an idea for rotations yet. Like during the regular season, like I try to do my best to like track rotations. And like I don't even bother going through.
Folks.
I do not
bother him in the press box.
It's true. I do not do a good job of doing this in the preseason because I'm just like I don't see like how this is really going to help me, But I'm curious to see if like Bickerstaff and I suspect when Rubio comes back and is healthy, he's going to play. But until he comes back, does he decide I need Neto to do what he's going to do, or can I like play another slightly bigger wing and just let Garland and Mitchell be my point guards? How he decides that will be kind of an interesting little run. I don't think we know. Mm-hmm. I think we're just going to like see how it looks against Toronto, see how it looks in these first couple months, and maybe it kind of ebbs and flows just like Robin Lopez might ebb and flow out of minutes. But I'm curious to see like what Bickerstaff's impulse will kind of be to say, okay, do we need Neto? Or can we like just have these two guys do this for us and then we can play, we can squeeze another like a Jetty onto the floor for shooting or Lamar on the floor for defense or like one of these fringe wings to kind of give them some more running, give you a little bit more size on the perimeter.
It is an interesting thought exercise when you start to kind of break it down a little bit because right now it's Garland, Mitchell, we'll say LeVert, Mobley, Allen is your starting five, and then your bench will primarily be, to start the season, Love, Okoro, Wade probably, and then you, like you said, because ideally Bickerstaff wants to go 9 or 10 deep, maybe with Mitchell kind of soaking up those minutes for Neto, like you said, like you get more Lamar Stevens minutes, or you get more Jetty Osmond minutes, or you find more clear pathways to get more shooting on the floor, like that just makes more sense. And then when Rubio comes back, this concern kind of gets brushed away a little bit, but it's certainly interesting. I think it's also a different way to maybe unlock things. And also, if you're the Cavs, make some of your tradable assets look better so you can go get a wing.
Let's just do a quick thought exercise on 10. Assume starters, Garland, Mitchell, LeVert, Mobley, Allen. Kevin Love. Isaac Okoro. Dean Wade. That's 8. So if you're going to go 9 and
fully healthy.
Yeah, this is saying fully healthy.
Ricky Rubio.
So Ricky Rubio's 9. So I think in that case, well, let's say fully healthy, no Rubio. So let's those 8.
Okay.
Rubio obviously would become 9, but in this case, he's not. I think you go is Neto 9? Is Robin Lopez how Neto? I feel like Lopez is clearly going to be in that 10 on nights he plays. Is the other guy Lamar? Is it Jetty? Who is that guy, or is it Neto? It kind of feels like those guys are all competing with each other a little bit to me.
Yeah, that's the crux
and that's
of
like
it.
10 minutes. That's like a 10-minute run, but like that is part of your rotation here until Rubio comes back.
It's an interesting thing to think about, and the Lopez part of it is interesting because it depends on who they're playing. Let's say they're playing a bigger team. It makes more sense to throw Robin Lopez out there to kind of just spare your big men from either getting in foul trouble or just getting banged around too much during the game. Maybe you do need extra point guard help and you call on Holland Neto instead, or you do need shooting and Jetty Osman isn't feeling dangerous that night, so you let him just go out there and kind of take a couple shots, and if Jetty's hot, you roll with him. But that 10-minute gap with Jetty, I think you can afford to maybe gamble for a few minutes with him to see if, okay, we're going to get the good Jetty Osman tonight, but if you're getting the bad, you can pull the hook and then give those minutes to, Lamar Stevens, Neto, Lopez, somebody else. But the Cavs aren't top-heavy necessarily. I mean, yes, they are top-heavy in terms of just their core 4, but they have some interesting depth pieces. But once you kind of get out of, that 8, 9-ish man rotation, it starts to really crumble a little bit on who should get minutes at the 10-man spot and things like that, just because there's a lot of just samey guys that are good but not great either.
Last thing, would you say that let's just say with a second round pick next year or in the futures, would you say finding another kind of Ricky Rubio size combo guard type in developing that player is a need that you would kind of prioritize in your development stack if you're Cleveland?
Yes, but I'll give the coward's caveat of if RJ Nembhard looks like more of a serviceable 10th or 11th man guard, because you're still going to be giving most of your minutes to Mitchell and Garland. Maybe look at that, but yeah, invest a second round pick and then just keep funneling in guys on 2-way contracts to round out the back end of your rotation.
Let's just say I'm a little skeptical that Nembhard's going to morph into that kind of guy.
I am too, but gun to my head, if I had to pick Sharif Cooper or RJ Nembhard, I'd probably pick RJ Nembhard right now just because he's a bigger player.
Yeah, yes, but am I picking Nembhard for this role or a mystery box 4-year college point guard next year? I'm probably taking the mystery box.
I'd take the mystery box as well.
I would like to see RJ Nembhard do something that isn't trying to just score a bunch of points.
Well, that's the tricky part, is that's how the Charge like to utilize him. They like to let him score a ton, and then he'll just he's good in the pick and roll, man. I've watched a lot of Charge games. He's very good in the pick and roll, and he can make basic reads. I just think maybe working with Garrity this season will expand his repertoire a little bit and maybe expand his core division so it's not so much a tunnel for him.
Yeah. Well, maybe if Cooper ends up sticking around there, maybe he kind of pushes. There's some that Charge team could have some sneaky little fun stuff there if certain guys end up there.
They could have some interesting dudes on their roster other than Isaiah Mobley and the 4 training camp guys and RJ Nembhard that are going to end up there.
If you can have at least 6 guys on a G League team that are kind of worth a little look, I think that's not. All right.
Even Nate Hinton, my king for not sending the game to overtime, he intrigues me too. It's just there could be something there. I don't know.
Yeah, no preseason overtime for us. All right, that is going to be it for this episode of Locked On Cavs. I want to thank you again for making us your first listen every day. This episode was produced by the indomitable, the wonderful Jake Stevens. We're going to be back on Monday looking at the Cavs wine and gold scrimmage, anything coming out of that, as well as looking ahead to the Monday night preseason game, round 2 against the 76ers. Hope you tune in for that. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Host Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris. That's Evan. Everyone have a great weekend and be well.